Hi. Today I'm going to talk a bit more about the Octatrack and using plays free tracks on the Octatrack. If you've seen the last couple of videos, you might have seen me using plays free tracks on audio tracks in this part of the Octatrack, but today I'm not only using plays free on audio, but also in the MIDI page as well. So I'll run through the setup quickly and then try and demonstrate it a little bit and explain what's going on. First of all, the Moog Mother 32 is set up quite basically. I'm using the MIDI output from the Octatrack to go to the MIDI input. This patch is not very complicated. I'm just using the keyboard output to go into the voltage mixer, which is then going into the filter cutoff. So I have, as the notes get higher, the cutoff opens a little bit more, so the notes are clearer or pingier, and I have some control over that as well. I've also been trying feeding the VCA output back into the external audio. I don't know. I don't think it's really doing much. I was reading about feeding output back into the filter on Moog synthesizers, but I guess this is not the right way to do it. Anyway, so yeah, the basic setup for the Mother 32. Now the Octatrack is set up. I'm just looking at these 4 tracks. In the audio side, I'm just using 4 tracks. So these 2 are just all the drums, just already sequenced. I'm using these 4 for something else, but I'm not talking about that in this video. Then track 1 is just the through track coming from the Mother 32. Got quite a bit of the volume cranked on this. I find it's useful to use that gain stage. No real settings on the amp or anything. It's just like turning it on so it's audible. Don't think there's any LFOs. A little bit of panning. I'm moving the delay send and I think the delay time later on as well. And also just like, yeah, bit of delay. Quite a slow time to get that kind of repeating sound. The second track is a flex track, so it's recording from not only track A, input A straight into A from the Mother 32, but also track 1. So I'm recording both. So you can see instantly that the volume of this one has to be down quite a bit more. Otherwise, having those dual might give you a bit too much gain. I'm also using the filter's distortion because I do like a little bit of that too much gain. It can sound quite good. Basically, this you can see there's a trigless trig on the first step, which is reducing the volume. I can't remember why I did that. I'll see if I figure it out during the video. But basically, this is it's an 18-step track, and the actual it's a 18-step track, and the audio isn't triggered until the 17th step. So that's basically, I've just found that it sounded better if I was recording for 16 steps and then triggered the playback after the actual playback of the Moog finished. So I'm recording 16 steps and it loops. The loop setting in the playback page is turned to on. I was using it in ping pong mode for a while, but I like the sound of this better in the end. So that's the basic audio side. It's coming in through the flex track. It's being sampled here, and that sample, 16-step sample, is being played back and just kind of looped over and over. I'll demonstrate that in a sec. In the MIDI side, all of these are plays free tracks. There's 8 plays free tracks. The first 4 are the arpeggios, and these are set to be one-shot tracks, so they just play once when I tap them, and they're quantized to the length of the track, so they won't start playing until it's like the right. They start playing in time, basically. They don't just trigger at any point when I just tap them. So these are all set up the same. The second 4 are set up slightly differently. They're not one-shot tracks, and the trig mode is set to 1-2, meaning that I have to turn them on and press it again to turn it off. basically. But it will just play through whatever's programmed. You can see it's pretty simple bass line, just 16 steps. So the reason for this was I wanted to try and get, as much mileage as possible. Try and get an arpeggio and a bass line from one synth. And I've tried this a few times. Sometimes it works really well, and other times you get the notes fighting and everything just kind of turns into a bit of a mess. But it seems to work okay on this one because there's enough space. With careful planning, you can do it really well, and you can get a lot more out of your synth. So let's just listen to what the arpeggios sound like to start with. So we're hearing the delay on the flex track. Sorry, on the 3 track, not hearing the flex track at this point. Okay, so you can hear it's like it's on the scene as well. It's like a super long delay. When it's just set to normal, it's a little bit shorter than that. So gradually making a mess over here. Yeah, so it's quite a long delay, and the idea is to repeat that phrase rather than just to repeat individual notes, but to get a little bit of that repetition. And then using the flex machine to kind of duplicate that as well. But before we get into that, you can hear how the bassline tracks interact with the arpeggiator tracks. So for example, the sequence has to be running for these 4 1-2 tracks to trigger. I'm not sure why that is. If anyone knows about that, I would be very interested to figure out why that is. Okay, so sequence is running. I'll just mute the drums so we can concentrate on the sounds we got going. So you can hear, I'll tap them, but they won't start until it's the right point in the track because they're quantized, basically. So you can hear these bass lines will just keep going round and round. But this one's playing at the moment, but if I trigger this one without turning this off, then because the notes are in the same place, the whole thing, it can't manage to prioritize which notes you want because it doesn't know, right? So this one, the track 8 was playing first, so it just keeps playing those notes. So I have to turn that off, and then we can hear track 5. Right, so that's the basic idea, but then I just wanted to enhance that by stretching out the amount of delay that's going on by using a flex track to do that. So what that sounds like then, if I'm using number 2 here to trigger the plays free flex track, number 2 is also set to plays free. You can see that it's a one-shot track as well. It's quantized to 16 steps. So it's not quantized to the track length because the track length is kind of funky, right? So I quantized it to 16 steps, which means that after 16 steps it will trigger. So it will trigger at the same time as the MIDI track. So here's what it sounds like. So you can hear it just extends the phrase, just like keeps it going for loads longer. Fills up that space, and then towards the end it has a really slow envelope in the filter, which is just gradually lifting up the bass value so that it kind of turns into this high pass as it fades out. So you can hear like it's a little bit clicky, maybe at certain points when it's transitioning. There's no crossfade on the Octatrack. There's no setting for that, but I just find it's usually not worth worrying about that kind of stuff. Like if I put in the drums, I just find that click is not really noticeable enough for it to be a huge problem. So let's try and move through the cycle of the pattern. I'll put the bass line in on the next one. So for this next transition, I need to press the bass line that's on, the bass line that I want to move to, the arpeggio, and the flex track to trigger the sample. And same again.